Hey guys, how's everybody doing? It's Nick with Urban Farm Boys, and I wanted to do a little video today to do a bit of a review of the Caron Anniversary Cakes yarns that I got less than a week ago, and also a little bit of a tutorial because I got these less than 1 week ago. I got 3 of these giant cakes, and I've already gone through an entire one. I'm working on a open block stitch corner to corner blanket, and I've already finished an entire one of these giant cakes. So I thought today I would give you my first impressions of the yarn, show you my progress. I'm more than halfway done. I think I'm going to need about 1.5 of these big giant cakes to finish it, maybe a little more than 1.5. And then I thought I would show you how to do it. So that's the plan for tonight. I just posted a little bit of a yarn unboxing of these yarns. I got them less than a week ago. I really only discovered them recently. So I will put that link below if you'd like to check that out. It'll be in the description. I saw somebody on Reddit, I think, who had made a really pretty corner to corner blanket, and he mentioned using these anniversary cakes in, this is the colorway, Book Club. I had seen a couple of other colorways in the stores, but I had not seen this one, and it was impossible to find, but I was able to order it online, and I talk in that video linked below about kind of the little trick that I used to get them to ship it to me. I found a store that had them in stock, and they shipped it to me from a store that was nowhere near me. So anyway, check that video out if you want. But anyway, that was 6 days ago, and this very same night I was like, I have to try this out. We just got back from a trip. We went to Maine for my birthday, and if you saw that video before, I did get to be passenger princess, which means I crocheted in the car the whole time, and almost every morning while we were there I just couldn't stop, and I love my blanket. So let me show it to you. Let me show you what I've got so far, and then I'll show you how I do it. Alright, so this is what we've got so far, and it's a pretty hefty blanket. So this is I will link the tutorial that I watched to learn this stitch below as well. I saw this tutorial on Hooked by Robin's channel, and she calls it the corner to corner open block stitch. So this is a corner to corner pattern. So you start in a corner with one little block, and then you build and build and build. And what's different between this and just the regular corner to corner blankets, as you can see, is all these gaps. It's super easy. It's not any harder than the regular corner to corner stitch. It's actually just as easy, and it works up quicker because you've got all these gaps in it. When you're doing it as a corner, they look like little diamonds, but then once the blanket is done, which mine is not, but once you turn it the right way, these gaps turn into pretty perfect squares, and it's really pretty. So this is one of these giant cakes of the anniversary cakes, and it's so big I can't even show it to you in the camera, but I'll just hold still for a second, or maybe lower it in slow motion so you can kind of see how it works up. And I'm pretty obsessed with the yarn, the colorway. Whoa, that's a lot of color. So we'll get into the tutorial here shortly, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a review. I'll see if I can put timestamps so that you can skip ahead if you'd like to. But I had never used this yarn before. It is classified as a super bulky yarn, and I was hoping it would be. And it definitely is. The colorway Book Club, let me just show you what this looks like from below. I'm a book lover. I'm kind of like a reading geek. So I got hooked by the name of the colorway Book Club. I don't really know who associated these colors with that name, but it worked, right? Because I bought 3 of them. And it's pretty loud. It's busy, I guess. But I really like how it looks. Like, these colors somehow all just work together. There is sort of a front and a back on these. Not really, but let me show you from the front. I think it looks really cool. So, big fan. So I'm going to show you shortly here a tutorial, but if you're curious right now while I have this blanket out, the fun thing about corner to corner projects is you don't have to plan ahead really, except decide what yarn you want and realize you'll need enough yarn for your project. You start in a corner and you make it as big as you want to. It repeats well, with this pattern it repeats every other row. So you just go as far as you want, and you can make it a square, you can make it a rectangle. I'm making mine a rectangle. So I have gotten as wide, I guess, as I want it, and now I'm lengthening it, which I will talk to you guys about. So you can see this is as far as I've gotten in the lengthening process. And then I'll be able to close it up and it'll be a nice rectangle. So this, I think, where I'm at currently, where I ran out of yarn, right here was the end of my yarn. I think I'm at about 45 blocks across and something like 65 long. I think I'm gonna do, or maybe I'm like 61 or 63 long, I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna do probably 75 long. So I've got maybe another 10 rows, rows, and then I can start closing it up. So, super fun. I really like the colors. This yarn is very soft. It is bulky. I'm using an 8 millimeter crochet hook, and it seems to work perfectly. I was hoping I could use a 10, which I probably could, but I like that these blocks are pretty tight. I say pretty tight, they're not. I think it would be a little too loose if I used the 10 millimeter. 8 seems to be perfect. The cakes recommend, what do they recommend? An 8, actually. So it's working for me. What I really like about it is how soft it is. It's super, super soft, really cozy, really comfortable. This is definitely a blanket you want like on your skin. I've used plenty of other yarns that are fine, but not that cozy. This one is super cozy. So the only downside, I'll mention 2, and they're minor. One of them is that this yarn is a little bit splitty. I'll show you in the tutorial portion. It's like 3 strands wound together. It's a little bit splitty. I think it's pretty easy to get them to separate and your hook goes in between. Not really an issue for me. It's not splitty enough that it bugs me. It just happens occasionally. I wouldn't call that a downside. I would definitely buy this again, but just something to be aware of if that kind of thing drives you crazy. The only other thing to mention is that I had heard this before I used it. So when I was passenger princess on our trip to and through Maine, we had this to-go bag, this like fancy like shopping bag that was kind of a perfect square, and it fit one of these cakes perfectly into it. So since I had it in the car with me and I was going to sit it on the floor, I had it in that to-go bag so the yarn didn't get dirty. And that sort of held the shape of this cake as I pulled from the middle. And these all come with like a little sticker where you can easily find the middle end. So that's nice. But then the more yarn you use, just like any other skein, it gets a little wobbly and kind of collapses. I didn't have much of an issue because it was in that bag, so it wasn't moving around a lot. At the very end, maybe my last, I don't know, 100 yards or so, I think because it was so big and it was kind of collapsing on itself, I had a couple of experiences where I would pull on the yarn and like a big clump would come out, but what I found was like my working yarn had kind of like looped around, I don't know, one of the rounds inside, so it was like a big, perfectly organized like ball of yarn that my yarn had just like looped around and it popped out. Easy to fix, no knotting, not a big deal, really easy to work with. So I don't want to pull from the outside. That would prevent that from happening, but it's too big of a yarn ball to deal with. So that was it. I have nothing else bad to say. I've looked online and tried to see if I want more. It's pretty hard to find. I'm hoping that they restock more of this. I was at Michael's today and they actually had 4 different colorways in stock. They had exactly 1 of each. I'll insert a little video just so you can see the other colorways, and I think there's maybe 7 total, 7 or 8. So check it out. This is from Michael's, by the way. I don't think the other stores sell them. I didn't really like any of the other colorways. There's one like brown themed, I think it was called like birch or forest or something like that, which I do like. I can't seem to find that one. They didn't have that in the store, and I didn't like any of the other ones. But this is book club. I love it. If you can find it, I highly recommend it. If you like any of the other colorways, grab them before they're gone because they seem to be disappearing. So with that, my review is done, and maybe it's time to do a little tutorial for you guys, just to show you how I do it. Super easy. Before I adjust the camera and show you guys how to do this, it's super easy. And I think it's definitely a beginner-ish friendly pattern if you know a couple of basic stitches. And if you don't, you can practice them and learn them while you're doing this blanket. All you have to know how to do are chains, double crochets, and slip stitches. And there's some varieties on how you can do these corner-to-corner blankets. I will link a video below on some of the variations you can do, but this is kind of the standard classic model. And it's chains, double crochets, slip stitches, that's it. And you almost can't mess it up. If you do make a mistake, you'll see it really quickly. So I think it's a great way for beginners to learn how to crochet. You guys, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I'm a big granny square fan. I think those are also a great way to learn and practice if you're new to crochet. This is another one. So highly recommend. But I will say I am not a tutorial person. I'm going to show you guys because I know a lot of people learn differently or in different ways, or they like to watch how different people do things. There's always variations. So I'm going to just do a little swatch with one of my new cakes before I pull it apart and start or continue on my blanket. But I learned from Hooked by Robin. I am going to link her corner to corner blanket below and her open block stitch video below. They're both great if you want to practice corner to corner. They're essentially the same concept. The corner to corner blanket does not have the holes in it. If you like that better, this is sort of a modification on that does have the holes. So she's great, watch her tutorials. But having said all that, I'm going to show you guys how I do it just because a lot of people have asked. So let me get the camera readjusted and I'll show you how to start this. I'll do a little swatch as a square, which is easy, and then I'll show you guys how you can easily modify it to become a rectangle. Sound good? All right, let's get started. All right, so for this pattern, I'm using an 8mm crochet hook. This is Clover Amour. You can use whichever you like. And then you need your yarn. No yarn changes, no color changes that you have to do. Super easy. I did mention earlier I was going to show you guys this, how it can split a little bit. So this is the end of the yarn, and you can see Now this is what was taped up at the top of the yarn ball, but you can see how easy it kind of comes apart. So just be aware of that. It does get tighter as you get into the yarn, but there's the potential for some splitting. Okay, just like with anything else, you start with a slip stitch, throw that on your hook, and so we're starting with a corner, right? And then you go in rows. Every row builds by one block. So our first row is going to have one block. And the way you do it is you start with a chain 6. Okay. In the corner you want to try to have pretty even tension so that you don't stretch it out and have your corner baggier or looser than the rest of the project. So you've got your 6 stitches there. What you're going to do next to build this into a block is you're going to skip the first 3 chains and you're going to double crochet into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chains. Okay? Some people I've seen will do their stitches, their double crochets into that back bump. You don't have to do that. That seems a little more advanced. I don't do that. So you're going to do double crochets into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chains. So you skip the first 3. Okay? So double crochet into the 4th. And double crochet into the 5th. And double crochet into that very last one, the 6th. Okay, this is your first block. So we're going to build on these blocks over and over and over. So, and that's actually your first row too. One block done. So you've got 3 double crochets, and at the very end you have this chain 3 here that those are the first 3 chains that you skipped. That creates this very large, easy to identify space here, and you build all of your blocks into those chain 3 spaces. So you don't have to figure out where am I and how do I find a stitch and all of that. You're looking for these huge gaps, which are the chain 3 spaces. Easy, right? Okay, let's start with row 2. So to start every new row, it's the same. You have to chain 6. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We just chained 6. You can let this little dude hang there. You're going to skip those first 3 chains and you're going to double crochet into the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. Okay, so skip 3 and double crochet into the 4th. And double crochet into the 5th. And double crochet into the 6th. Did you see there? It just split a little bit, but it's easy to resolve. Okay. Now you have what looks like 2 little feet hanging down. Every single time you start a new row, the way you connect is you're going to flip your work. So you're not turning necessarily like in a lot of projects. What you're doing is you're taking that previous row, remember row 1 only has 1 block, this is our previous row, and you're going to flip it upward to join. Okay, so they're dangling, this is row 1, you flip it upward, and then you connect your new rows with a slip stitch into that chain 3 space. Remember that big gap? So all you do to connect them is slip stitch into that chain space. Okay, so since our first row has only 1 block, our second row should have 2. We've just done 1. So here's how to build a new block. Once you've slip stitched into that chain 3 space right there, super easy, You build another block by doing a chain 3. So chain 3, and then you do 3 double crochets into that big, easy to find chain 3 space. Okay, so that chain 3 and then 3 double crochets. There's 1 and 2 and 3. Okay? If you're doing a regular corner to corner project, you're going to repeat this over and over and over and over until your blanket is done and you don't need to learn any other techniques. Easy, right? Super easy. What we're going to do though is modify it into the open block stitch, where every other row you're going to have open blocks. This right here is going to be an open block. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so we're ready to do round 3. When you're starting a new, I should say row 3. When you're starting a new row, it's the same process where you have to build a block first by chaining 6. Okay, you'll have some stuff dangling down here. Don't worry about it, you can just kind of let it drop. You've chained 6 and you're going to do exactly the same thing. This is not hard to remember once you do it just a couple of rows. So we've chained 6 and now we're going to do a double crochet in the 4th, 5th and 6th chains, skipping the first 3. Those are going to turn into that big chain 3 space on our block. Okay, so double crochet and into the 4th chain, into the 5th chain, and into the 6th chain. Oop. Okay, this is the start of row 3 right here. We have these guys dangling, and remember I said to connect your new rows to your existing rows, you have to flip them. Not turn, but flip these guys. Okay, so we're going to flip them up, and you connect your new row to your existing row with a slip stitch. You see how easy this chain 3 space is to find? So you're just going to slip stitch into that chain 3 space to connect them. Okay? Now, here is where regular corner to corner diverges. Like I said, if you wanted to do a solid corner to corner, you would build another block right here, connect it to this chain 3 space, and continue. We are not doing that because we're going to create these open gaps. So to create that gap, and this becomes super apparent in the next couple of rows if it's confusing now, to create that gap, you chain 6. Okay? This is going to turn into like an open square. You see that? Okay? You'll do this every other row and you'll see it super easily in a couple more rows. Okay? So to create that open block, you chain 6, and then same as before, you slip stitch into that big, huge, easy to find chain 3 space. Okay, slip stitch there. Okay, so we had that outer, sorry about the dark yarn on the dark table, I didn't plan for that. That outer block, now we have this open block here, and we need to finish the row by creating one more block. To create blocks, you chain 3, remember, it's all the same, and you do 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. It's super easy to see it. So you do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Okay, so we're done with row 3. You See, we had one block here in row 1, 2 blocks here in row 2, and we have 3 blocks in row 3, but one of them is an open block. Okay, so every other row is going to have open blocks. So our next row is going to have solid blocks the whole way down. Okay, this has an open, so our next row is going to have solids. Okay. All right, so we're going to start row 4. And again, this pattern is repetitive enough that it's super easy. So to create the first block in a new row, you chain 6. Okay, you can let that stuff dangle down there. What are we going to do next? We're going to skip the first 3 chains, 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to double crochet into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chains. Okay? There are no new techniques. You've learned them all. Now it's just a matter of practicing. So I did a double crochet in the 4th. I do a double crochet in the 5th. My yarn is pulling. I gotta pull some more out of my giant cake here. Excuse me. Okay. And we will double crochet into that 6th chain. Okay, now we have a color change here. It's also more dark yarn, but I see we have some light yarn coming here. So there's the first block of our 4th row, and we have this guy dangling down here. How do you join? You flip it up, and you slip stitch into that chain 3 space to connect them. Are you seeing a pattern here? All right, so now you're basically building blocks and kind of climbing up the stairs, right? So you have this little block. We need to build one here, we need to build one here, and then we need to build one up here, right? So to build your blocks, do you guys remember? You chain 3, and then you slip stitch into that big open chain 3 space. Did I say slip stitch? I think I did. You do 3 double crochets. So you chain 3 followed by 3 double crochets. Okay, that was the first one. Here's the second one. Now, how do you connect to this open block? You do it the same way. You do a slip stitch. So you just go into that huge gap and slip stitch to join. Okay, now we're doing solid blocks on this row. So how do you do a solid block? Exactly the same way. You're going to chain 3 and do 3 double crochets. You're just going to loop them around this chain here rather than the chain space on a solid one. Okay, it's no harder. So you chain 3 and you do 3 double crochets. Oops, see, the yarn does split. You do 3 double crochets right onto that chain. That was 1, 2, and 3. And let me put this down for a second so you can see. Okay. You just created that first block, a second block, you built a third block right onto that chain there, that long chain of 6. And now you've seen that chain of 6 kind of turned into a square. There's kind of like 3 chains going upward that we slip stitched to, and the other 3 are going over, and we did 3 double crochets onto it, and it kind of pulls it into a square or an open block. Pretty cool, huh? And then again, how do you connect these? You slip stitch into that big open chain 3 space. So we'll slip stitch there to join. To finish, because we're on row 4 and we've made 3 blocks, you create another block by doing a chain 3 and 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. You see? Now if you're worried that your work looks a little crooked, don't, because as you connect more blocks to either side, it really does square up, straighten out. You don't really have to do anything, it happens naturally. But you see, there's row 1 with 1 block, row 2 has 2 blocks, row 3 has solid block, open block, solid block, and row 4 has 4 solid blocks. I'll do maybe 2 more rows because I want to show you guys how you build with these open blocks, and then I'll do a solid block. Okay, so we're done with row 4, we're ready to do row 5. How do you do that? You start a block with a chain 6. Okay, and then what? You skip the first 3 chains and you double crochet into the 4th, 5th, and 6th chains. Okay, so skip 3 and double crochet into 4 and 5 and 6. Okay, so there's our first block of row 6. We have all this stuff dangling. What do? You flip it up. Okay, flip up your work. Now we're on row 5. You can, if you are ever in doubt about what to do next, solid blocks or the open blocks, you just look at what you did before. So this row here, they're all solid. Below it, there's an open, but this one's all solid, so we know we're on an open block row where every other block is going to be open. So let me show you. After you flipped it up, you connect with a slip stitch. Okay, and every other block is going to be open. So this one is solid, so we're going to create an open block by doing a chain 6. Okay, sorry, it gets a little flippy when it's a small project. You connect your chain 6 to this open chain 3 space on this block here, right? So now we have our solid block, we have an open block. Now we create a solid block by doing a chain 3 and 3 double crochets right into that chain 3 space. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. My yarn is pulling again, sorry. 3. Okay. Good? Everybody with me? You connect to the next block up. You're kind of climbing the stairs with a slip stitch. And again, we will create an open block next. We just did a solid, so we're going to do an open block. So you chain 6. Okay, and you connect it to that big chain 3 space at the top of the block next to it. Okay, so you see, solid, open block, solid, open block. Now we've just connected it up here. Don't forget to finish your row with a solid block by doing a chain 3 and 3 double crochets right into that chain 3 space. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. You see? That completes row 5. If you ever have any doubt which row you're on, just count over. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a square, so you'll have the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Pretty cool, right? For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to now show you how to close this up and create a square. I'm linking, as I mentioned, Hooked by Robin's tutorial below. She does a way better job than I do, and she also shows you, if you don't want a square, how you would turn this into a rectangle. And what you do is you essentially stop building blocks on one side if this is as wide as you want it. Rather than adding on additional blocks on this side, you would just slip stitch up the edge while you continue building blocks on the other side. So then it would stop growing in this direction and you can make it continue to grow in that direction. It's very easy. I'm going to show you how to close this up into a square, and as I'm doing it, you'll see exactly how you would do it to make a rectangle. I'll show you what I mean by that later as we go. So for now, if you've decided your project is as wide as you want it to be, the correct size, and you want to start closing the square, here's what you do. To close up, I start with a chain 1, and then I actually turn my work, not flipping, but turning. So you'll turn your work over, and then rather than building more blocks, we need to move over in that direction so that we can build our blocks over here. So you've got these 3 stitches here. See? All you're going to do is slip stitch your way across them until you get to this chain 3 space. Okay? So we'll go ahead and slip stitch into this first, slip stitch into the second, slip stitch into the third, and then you also slip stitch into this chain space. Okay? So just rather than building more blocks, just slip stitch your way back across. I do a chain 1 at the beginning, as you guys saw. Most of the tutorials I've seen show you to do a chain 1. You don't have to, it just gives you a little bit of extra room. It does make it a little bit maybe pointed here at the end. If you don't like how that looks, skip your chain 1. But if you do a border, you're not going to notice it anyway, and it gives you actually a little bit of a space to do your corner on your border. So do it however you like. But if you see now, we're not creating rows anymore. If we turn it this way, we can climb back up the stairs. Okay? So we have an open block here. We need to create a solid block here. So we start by doing a chain 3, just like every other solid block, and 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space, which is now sort of at the top of our block after we rotated it. So got my 3 double crochets there. Okay, looks a little bendy right now. Trust me, it squares up as you complete it. So how do we continue? We slip stitch into this open block, and then we create a solid block just like before. Chain 3 and 3 double crochets. This little swatch also shows you how this colorway works up. So to connect, again, you grab that next block, climbing sort of up the stairs, and you slip stitch into that big chain 3 space. Okay? And then you do the same. You create a solid block with the chain 3 and 3 double crochets. Sorry, my yarn is tugging at me here on the side again. Okay, So that was 1, do 2, and 3. You know you're doing all solid blocks for this row because the one below it is open blocks, right? We connect to this next open block with a slip stitch, and again chain 3 and 3 double crochets. I think this is a great beginner friendly project. If you can practice chains, double crochets, and slip stitches a little bit, just so you know what they are, then you can just start this project and practice as you go. If you don't like how it looks, pull it out and do the row again or do the block again. Super easy. Okay, over here we connect to that last block again with a slip stitch into that chain 3 space. Okay, but we are not going to build a block on top of it because we're trying to close this project. Okay, so we have to chain 1. Can you see that fly on my hand? Rude. I have my windows open. Gross. Go away. Chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, and then just like before, you slip stitch through these 3 stitches here until you get back to that open chain 3 space. Okay, so I slip stitch through 1 and 2, whoopsie, and 3, and then you slip stitch into that chain 3 space. Okay, so now if we just take a moment, it's turning into a square. Okay, we're just gonna continue our work here until we can close this. So just for reference, we now have, if I turn it, because we're building here, let me just take a moment here to show you, if you ever are in doubt of what you need to do, whether it's a solid block or an open block, you can look at your previous row that you just built. This one is solid, so you know your next one is going to be open. If you ever have any doubts on which one should be solid and which one should be open, just look at your project from side to side. So this bottom row here, as I've turned it, it's all solid. The next one alternates. Solid, open, solid, open, solid. This next one is all solid. This next one alternates. So that's going to continue, and it shows you really quickly what you need to do next. So as I'm building this block in this space, if I don't know what I should do here, just look at everything in that row going the other direction. They're all solid. So I'm going to build a solid block here. If you look at the next row up, once I've built that and I'm climbing, this is an open kind of row. You see what I mean? So I need to build an open block right there. So let's just continue. And we know we have to do a solid block here. So I'm going to chain 3 and 3 double crochets. That's 1 and 2 and 3. Okay? Gotta join them right. So I'm gonna slip stitch into that big chain 3 space to connect them. Now I know we just talked about it. I have to do an open block here. It's open 2 blocks over on this side, you see? Same thing goes down, going down. You can tell every other block is open, so I know I need to do an open one here. And trust me when I say it, you're gonna build projects bigger than this one. It's super obvious if you have bigger projects. Just trust me on that one. You almost can't go wrong. I built my open block. I have to attach it to the next block there into that chain 3 space. And then I have to build my last block for this row with a chain 3, Sorry, yarn pulling again. Chain 3 and 3 double crochets. That's 1 and 2 and 3, and we get another color change. Okay, we have to join it here, so we join with a slip stitch into that top block, the chain 3 space, but we're not building anymore. We're trying to close this project, so we chain 1, turn our work, and we slip stitch into each of those 3 stitches right there, and then into the chain 3 space. Okay, slip, 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 and then our chain 3 space is here, so we slip stitch into that as well. And we're nearly done, right? So what do we have to do next? Our previous row here, you saw the open block. We're on a solid row, so we just need to build solid blocks. So we do that with a chain 3 and 3 double crochets. There's 1 double, 2 doubles, and 3 doubles. Okay. And then slip stitch into this open block. Okay. And again, we have to build another block on top of it with a chain 3 and 3 double crochets. With just this little swatch of kind of 5 by 5 blocks, you've got all the tools you need to do a corner to corner, the standard variety. Just rather than building these holes every other row, just make them all solid. That's a corner to corner project. And now you know how to do this version as well. So I've just connected that last block to the chain 3 space in the block next to it. But again, we're not making it taller, we're trying to finish up. So we chain 1, we turn, we slip stitch through these 3 stitches and into the chain 3 space. There's 1 slip stitch, 2, 3, and then into that chain 3 space. And look, check out where we are. We're at the very end. Okay, so we just need 1 more block. So chain 3 and 3 double crochets. Okay, same as every other time. There's 1 and 2 and 3. And we slip stitch into this chain 3 space to join, and we're done. And the sad part is, I think I only have 1 more color in this blanket. No, there's a couple, I think. There's 2 or 3 more colors that you didn't get to see. But we completed this little swatch. So this would be the time where if you wanted to finish off, I just do a little chain 1 to kind of secure it. Cut your yarn, pull tight, and then you're ready to do whatever the heck you want. Make a border. You can, there's videos, I'll maybe try to link those below too. You can join these, like do squares with join as you go if you wanted to do squares in different colors or solid colors. But I'm trying to get the extra yarn out of the way so you can see. That is your square. I'm leaving this because I don't want to cut it because I'm going to use it. Now, trust me when I say these square up really nicely. Okay, so there's our square. We got 4 little holes in the middle, solids all around, and you can make this as big as you want. We started down here, we worked our way up, and then we began shrinking back down. That's it. Again, I'll link Hooked by Robin's video on how to make rectangle shapes, but you remember when we were decreasing, we were not adding additional blocks on either side, we were just slip stitching across. To make a rectangle, you do half and half. So to not make this side any longer, when I'm moving up, when I'm decreasing, I would slip stitch across. But on the opposite side, when you're finishing your row, you would continue building additional blocks. Hooked by Robin's video makes that very easy to understand, but you would essentially just stop building on one side and slip stitch your way up, and then when you get across to the opposite side, you would build a new block and continue in that way. So, super easy to customize this however you want. And I hope you guys found this helpful. Alright guys, that's it for today. I hope that you found the little tutorial helpful. Please feel free to provide feedback if you like. I do not have overhead lighting for when I have to point my camera downward, so the lighting is kind of coming from the side. I know it makes a little bit of shadows. The reason I'm not really upgrading is because I'm not really a tutorial person, but I hope you found it helpful. Feedback below. I hope you guys try this. I am going to frog this back and get started, or I should say, get started on finishing my blanket here. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Comment below, let me know if you've done something like this. Check my description box. I'll link everything I mentioned in the video. There's all sorts of modifications you can do to this. You can make smaller blocks with fewer chains. You can do half double crochets instead of double crochets. There's all sorts of ways to customize it to your yarn size, your preferences, etc. I really like the open block. I also like the solid corner to corner. Anyway, tons of fun. Have you guys found any of these anniversary cakes? Which colorways do you guys like? What are you doing with them? I am going to use probably half of this guy to finish this blanket, and then I have another one. I have an idea that I might like to try to do a hexagon cardigan. I've now made 2 of them. I'm not happy with either one, but I'm not giving up, so third time's the charm. Do I want to wear something that looks like this though? Probably not. But it's, you know, this colorway somehow with all these wild colors, it really reminds me of fall. So maybe in the fall. And if I don't like it, I can frog it back. I actually frogged back an entire blanket to make my second hexagon cardigan, which I just finished a couple of weeks ago. It will be in an upcoming video. If you're new here, every month I make a everything I crocheted this month video. That one will be appearing in about a week from the date I'm posting this. It'll be in my everything I crocheted in September video. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe. There's other ways you can keep in touch with us. I'm going to put links in the description, but becoming a subscriber is great. It's free. You'll get to see all my other videos. I have a ton of other videos. I've been making videos on YouTube since 2006. Liking the video really helps. Commenting below really helps. I love to continue the conversation in the comments, so please consider doing that. If you want to become a member, it's as cheap as 99 cents a month. There's a join button below this video where you can click, and then it'll show you the different tiers and the different perks you'd get by becoming a member. You can think about that. If you don't see the join button or you're watching on a mobile, I'll put the link to join in the description as well. We have a Facebook group. It's really fun. You can share pictures, texts, ask questions. There's group chats, like chat groups in there. Really fun. That's free. You can do that. You can donate. I'm raising money for the World Wildlife Fund. If you enjoyed this content and you've got a couple of extra dollars hanging out, you can, I think, contribute in any currency from anywhere in the world. I am going to be running the New York City Marathon in November, and I have to raise $3,000 for the charity, the World Wildlife Fund, in order to gain access to the marathon. I've raised about $1,000 so far. There's like 5 weeks left, and I need another $2,000. So if you enjoyed the content and you've got a couple extra dollars lying around, check the description. There's a link there. The money goes directly to the World Wildlife Fund. It doesn't go to me. But if I raise $3,000, I can run the New York City Marathon, which has been my dream for 10 years. So that's enough of that. All kinds of ways to connect with me in the description below. Ooh, I forgot to mention, you gotta subscribe to the channel if you want to see this blanket completed. I'm going to be working my butt off on it, and hopefully it will be in my Everything I Crocheted in September video. There's a few more days left in September, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see how this looks done. If not, I'll either post an individual video about this, or it might end up in my Everything I Crocheted in October video. Either way, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. Instagram, also follow me on Instagram. I post a lot on there. A lot of stories and things about what I'm working on more of a daily basis, and other things that are not related to crochet and yarn. Ooh, postcard. Send us a postcard. Our address is in the description. Love postcards. Would love to see where you live, where you're from, where you're traveling. Link is down there as well. That's pretty cheap too. It's just the cost of a stamp. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope everyone is having a great night, and until the next time, take care, guys.